Hello, I'm Janae Chappelle, and today I'll be talking about Wayne Williams. On our agenda today, I'll start with our introduction, the history of everything Wayne went through as a kid. Then I'll move on to his delinquent behavior, his warning signs, possible interventions, a conclusion, and then my references. Wayne Williams, serial killer or suspect of circumstances. Today, I will discuss the Atlanta child murders who were allegedly committed by Wayne Williams in the year of 1979 to 1981. There were approximately 26 kids were killed, and they were all little black kids in the area. Introduction: Wayne Williams presumed to have murdered over 26 people over the course of 2 years between the years of 1979 and 1981, when he was finally arrested. And here's his story. His history: he was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia in 1959. He was born to two retirement age parents, both of which had not had any kids prior to having him. So he was an only child, and they also didn't have any kids after him. He thought very highly of himself, mostly due to the fact that his parents fed into him a lot due to him being an only child, which I can completely understand as a parent. Like, I get it, gotta feed into your kids, especially if you only got one. He had a habit of starting these grand projects and like never finishing them, and he like had this need to be creative, but he didn't really have an outlet for that. So what he started doing towards the time, when he was about to be arrested, he started being a producer for music. I say that very loosely. He was a producer for music, and he would use his quote unquote talent to lure young black poor children in. And he had a lot of access to young black poor children because they could sing or whatever reason. He was just the type of person that would, use that to his advantage. He was an opportunist, some may say. He was not a consistent worker, so he could not keep a job, and when he had a job, it was always an issue. He seemed to have a want to create, but did not have an outlet. Continuing on his history, he was a bit of a loner, so he didn't really have many friends. There was an interview that I watched with one of the ladies who knew him from a bar that he used to frequent a lot, where he would meet a lot of his quote unquote talent. And she said that he was the type of person, like, he felt like he was bigger than what everybody else is doing. Like, and nowadays, like, the young kids say bigger than the program. He genuinely believed that, like, he had this idea of himself that was grander than what anybody could see of him. And she was like, I liked him mostly because he was so different. Like, he just believed in himself. And that was something that motivated me. But also, he always said really mean things about little kids from the ghetto. And she didn't like that. She said that kind of rubbed her the wrong way. Moving forward, he understood police procedures. He understood a lot of things about police. And in his earlier years, he was arrested for impersonating a police officer because he bought an old police car and then decided to put a blue light on top of it and was riding around basically scaring people, acting as if he was a police officer. I believe that he pulled over like one or two people, and he got arrested for that. So yeah, probably don't do that. This, I added pictures of Atlanta, Georgia, then and now. This was in 1959, the year that Wayne Williams was born, and this is this year. It's a little blurry only because I had to blow it up, and I apologize for that. But here are some pictures of Atlanta, Georgia, then and now. I've been a few. As far as delinquent behavior goes, he murdered two black men and he dumped their bodies in the Chattahoochee River. And at this time, police officers were already constantly having to look in the Chattahoochee River because the kids who kept going missing, their bodies kept popping up in the Chattahoochee River. So at this time, they had already had like watch going on out there. They had a police officer on each side of the bridge's entrances, or further down the road for one side, because I think that's how Wayne was able to get on the bridge unnoticed. And then another one was located on the other end of the bridge. And in their stakeout, a couple of police officers were also like not up under the bridge, but on the shore of the water. So they heard a splash in the water when Wayne's car was up on the bridge. And the undercover officers were at the river and they heard the splash from the body and everything like that. They went over to the area and they also radioed to another like officer, like, hey, did you hear that? We heard something. What's going on up on the bridge? At the time, Wayne's car was on the bridge, but he had his lights completely turned off. So the way he came in was not guarded by cops, but the way he was leaving was. So when he left out from off of the bridge, he turned his lights back on after the splash. He turned his lights back on and then tried to just drive down the bridge like nothing happened. But he was stopped by two cops. The cops asked him, "Do you know how we pulled you over?" Wayne's response was, it was something to do with the kids, like the missing kids. Is it something to do with those missing kids? Like something. So, anyways, after finding him or seeing him on this bridge and they pulled him over, Wayne says, "Oh, it's something about those missing kids, right?" So immediately red flags start flying for the cops, and the cops, start paying a little bit more attention to this guy. Like, they don't have any proof that he did anything yet, but they do know that something just splashed in the water and this guy is here. And initially, he had no lights on when he came over here. Now he has lights on and we can see him and he is getting pulled over. So they kept an eye on him after that. They found fibers from his suede gloves, the trunk of his car, and his dog's fur on like 12 victims, like 12 of the children who were missing or found dead in the Chattahoochee River, or wherever he had dumped the bodies other than the Chattahoochee River. Like, they found fibers on 12 different victims. So in the trial, they went ahead and brought all of this to light, trying to get him charged with the murders of the 26 kids. But since it was only 12 victims who were, who had the evidence, like the fiber evidence, because DNA wasn't quite where it needed to be in 1979, but there were only a few of the victims who had it. They couldn't prove it for all of them. So technically they couldn't prove it for any of them because, well, if it don't fit, like, so he was only charged with the murder of the two guys who the officers found after after they heard the splash and saw him on the bridge. He was charged with the murder of the two men that were found in the water after that, who apparently they definitely had connections to him prior to, dying. And they definitely knew him prior to dying. And the fact that he was on that bridge at the exact same time that those bodies were pushed over the bridge, flipped over the bridge, whatever, he was the number one suspect. He couldn't prove without a doubt that he was not the guy who killed them or the guy who dumped them. So he got charged for those two murders. When it came to the 26 children murders, they could not charge him with anything because there was no way that they could place him at the crime scenes of the children's death. So this is why I decided to choose him. I chose him just basically off the fact of the matter that we don't know whether or not he killed those kids or not. We do know that he killed those two men, but there's no proof or evidence, according to them, that he killed the kids. So he hasn't been charged with that, but they count the cases closed only because after he passed, not after he passed, they count the cases closed because after he was sent to jail, there was like less kids dying. Not that they weren't dying anymore, but there were less kids dying. So they pretty much just kind of wrote it off as, yep, it was him. And that was it. They didn't look any further. They didn't try to find anyone else to put it on. They just decided, well, makes sense. He was there. He was dumping bodies. So it could be him or it couldn't, but it could be. Because of this, they couldn't charge him with that, but because he got double life sentences, they didn't really care. Like, I don't think the family members really cared. They accepted that he was the person. But a lot of people and a lot of parents, even now, of the children, they still say that they didn't know like all the evidence, or they didn't get all of the information, they still don't know why this black man was chosen to be the suspect when there was more than likely a white man killing the kids, because the KKK at the time was very affluent in this area. Warning signs go, his disdain, he had a terrible disdain for black children, but they were his only clientele for his upstart like music production. So he lied a lot about his success and his accomplishments. He was in like some like one-off little film when he was younger. I did find that on YouTube, and I think I want to try to link it in like the later. But he was in a little one-off film when he was quite young, so maybe that adds to him thinking he's super successful, given his parents spent their dang near life savings producing this film for him. So his parents did do a lot to like coddle him and to make sure that he felt seen, like they wanted him to feel successful. They supported him a lot, and even in the trial they were very supportive of him. He had an inflated sense of self, despite being unsuccessful in really all of his ventures. Like I haven't been able to find a single venture of his that panned out, other than like being a murderer. And I went ahead and added a picture of the victims. These were, you know, the victims that I was able to find. There were also some young ladies as well. So these are just the men. Oh no, the girls are on here too. So they're just at the bottom. But there were a few young ladies as well who were murdered, and they're putting those murders on him as well. Possible interventions. So his friends said that he would joke with him. Again, I mentioned earlier that there was a woman in an interview on YouTube who was speaking on the fact that when he would come around, he always made these really vulgar jokes about like the kids who didn't have a lot, like the little black kids. He would call them like a very inappropriate like rendition of the N-word. He did not like them. Like he couldn't stand poor kids. Like, why don't you have money? Like it's their fault. You get what I'm saying? Like poverty in the black community runs so deep that it is hard to get away from poverty. And if you're lucky enough to do it, you should be trying to reach back if you can. He did not see things that way. He saw that the poor kids out here, like I can either use them for business or, forget them. Like it doesn't matter who they are. You know what I'm saying? He didn't care for them as people. And that to me was a humongous red flag. I feel like his friends, especially knowing everything that's going on, because everyone in the black community was vigilant at this time, because so many kids were going missing, that if I heard a friend say like, I can't stand them ghetto kids, I can't stand them, slurs and everything like that, I probably would have started waving red flags like, hey, what's going on with you? Why you hate kids so much? And what is making you feel as though, you have to talk about them like this? Like, we're adults in a bar right now. Why are we even talking about kids? I also do feel that the night that they pulled him over on that bridge, the authorities should have just went ahead and arrested him, because they let him go because they didn't have any evidence. They just knew that they heard a splash and then they saw his car. They could not prove that he was the one who made the splash, or that that him being there was wrong. He can be on the bridge. Why not? So they couldn't prove anything, and they just let him go that first night. And I feel like that could have been an intervention from him being able to go out and do more stuff. I'm not saying that he did go out and do more stuff, because again, they still were not able to even prove that the children that they claimed he killed, he actually killed. But just in case, like knowing what we know now, probably should have arrested him the first night. I'm not confident that rehab and treatment would have helped him, simply because he genuinely does not see the error in his ways. He still to this day claims his innocence, even with all the evidence stacked against him. And the newer evidence that came out later on, like after the trial was over, after DNA and everything like that has been able to be used. Even the parents that I mentioned previously that said like, oh, well, we didn't like ever really trust that it was a black man. We felt like they were trying to frame him and stuff like that. They got this new information, and with that, a lot of them felt closure, because they're like, oh, well, maybe they really did get the right man who was doing this stuff, because we didn't have as many murders after. The fibers were matching. This was happening here and this was happening there. And they genuinely felt like they finally got closure after 40 years of trying to figure out who killed their kids. Still clings on to his innocence, still to this day. There's interviews of him on YouTube if you want to watch them. Like, Wayne Williams is he's something. He really believes very highly of himself. I did not watch his direct interview before recording this, but I will be watching it after, because I came across the interview while editing my presentation. So I will be going back to watch his actual interview. But as far as what I know from the people who knew him, he was very, very sure of himself, but he didn't have a lot that backed up his sureness of himself, if that makes sense. Conclusion: Wayne Williams lived a very average and normal childhood. He had two older parents who cared a lot about him and fed into him a lot and gave him really hard to raise him. They were almost retired when he was even born, so they were older, like they were in their older years. I didn't find anything that's like specified exactly how old either of them were. I'm sure it's out there, but I did not find it. But they just kept referring to them as older parents, so I'm assuming in their 30s or 40s when they had him. And yeah, they were both school teachers, so they didn't make a lot of money. Their pension that they were getting wasn't much. Like, it was enough to keep them afloat. They had a nice enough house. They were living comfortably, and they were making sure that their son was happy. And that's all they did. Whether he did or did not kill the 26 children is still up for debate, but they were able to convict him on the two murders of the young men that he had murdered, and he is today still serving his 2 life sentences for those murders. He has not passed away as of me recording this video, but he has been in jail for 40 years and has been claiming his innocence the entire time. Now, I am inclined to believe that some things do happen within the criminal justice system, especially with Black people, where we will get the scapegoat role in a lot of things. It happens. It really does. It's been a lot of instances of mistaken identity, because for some reason, to some cops, all Black people do look the same. But I will not say that with all of the evidence and everything that is against Wayne Williams, that I believe that he is innocent, but I do not believe that they proved without a reasonable doubt that he killed those 26 kids. And now, with all of the new technology and DNA evidence and everything like that, I do believe that they should go back and redo that trial. Now, who do you believe, Wayne or the FBI? Here are my references. I used an article called "Was Wayne Williams a Serial Killer of 23 Kids, or Did a Racist System Railroad Him?" I read also the Wayne Williams biography, the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Atlanta child murders, directly from the FBI website. I also used a news article, no, not even a news article, a video from the news, for The Pattern of a Killer, the trial of Wayne Williams. And that's on YouTube. The link is in the PowerPoint, which I will link. And yeah, and then Facebook, there was also 29 kids vanished from Atlanta streets. One man went to prison, but questions remain. People.com. So the thing is, with the number, I know that it seems like the number for, the children keeps changing, but it's somewhere between 23 and 29 children were missing in this time. So normally I say 26 just because it's right there in the middle. But they really don't know how many kids were killed. They have a ballpark of a number, and like that's it. They have 23 to 24. I don't know. They've tried to charge him with 28 counts of murder. So I'm going to say 26, just because that seems like it falls right in the middle. And because minus the 2 men that he was actually convicted of killing, it adds up to about 26 children. So also I use the top 5 or top 25 most infamous Black serial killers and where they are today. I got to this article literally just from typing in Wayne Williams' name. So he's a big deal for black serial killers, mostly because he's almost alone on the list. It's not many other ones that are with him. The other ones include like a woman who was like a black widow who would kill her husband, and I want to say that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. But there were 25 of them, or more than 25. Regardless, those are all my references. Thank you so much for paying attention to my slideshow, my presentation about Wayne Williams, and hopefully, you thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye.